Apostle Paul is often considered to be one of the most important person after Jesus in the history of Christianity. Though he did not follow Jesus during his earthly ministry, it is undeniable that he was set apart and empowered to advance the kingdom of God on earth. In fact, the Holy Spirit inspired him to write 11 out of the 27 books in the New Testament. Let's delve into the origins and great works of the Evangelist to the Gentiles. Apostle Paul was born around 5 AD as a Roman citizen in the city of Tarsus, Cilicia, also known as modern-day Turkey. He was given the name Saul Paulus by his parents, who were prominent Jews and Romans with direct lineage to the tribe of Benjamin. Tarsus was widely known as a university city with a dominant Stoic philosophy. It is here Saul learned the Greek language and philosophy, which influenced the terminology used in his writings. Paul utilized his Grecian cultural and educational background as leverage in his efforts to convert and train Gentile hearers in the way of the Lord. Until the midpoint of his life, Paul was a member of the Pharisees. He was the best Jew and the best Pharisee of his generation, according to his own account. In Acts 7 and 8, the then Saul was known as a prosecutor of the early church movement. But Saul began ravaging the church, entering house after house, and he would drag away men and women and put them in prison. Acts 8:3. One day as he journeyed to Damascus, he had an encounter with Jesus Christ, when a bright light shone on him from heaven, and a voice said, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" Paul was blinded for 3 days after this encounter, until the prophet Aeneas came to lay hands on him and baptize him. The Lord revealed to Aeneas that Saul is chosen vessel unto me, to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. Saul then departed Damascus and spent 3 years in Arabia. When we next hear of Saul, he is now being called Paul. He dwelt with Jesus' apostles and worked hand in hand with them in preaching the good news about Jesus. The Bible declares that Paul was filled with the Holy Spirit. The mighty works he performed in his ministry included discerning spirits, blinding a false prophet, healing the sick, casting out demons, surviving being stoned to death, compelling both Jews and Gentiles to follow Jesus. Paul embarked on 3 mission trips before he died in AD 67-68, where he planted 7 churches: Galatia, Philippi, Ephesus, Corinth, Colossae, Thessalonica, Rome. It is estimated that the Apostle Paul traveled a total of 17,285 miles, or 27,800 kilometers. In AD 48, Paul and Barnabas started their first missionary journey by traveling to Cyprus. On this mission, they visited and preached in Salamis, Paphos, Perga, Pisidia, Lystra, Derbe, Iconium, Antioch. AD 49, 52 Paul and Silas proceeded on Paul's second missionary journey. They traveled and preached in Syria, Cilicia, Derbe, and Lystra. Timothy joined them and strengthened the ministry as they continued to Troas, Neapolis, Philippi, Amphipolis, Apollonia, Macedonia, Thessalonica, Berea, Athens, and Corinth. AD 53, 56 Apostle Paul embarked on his third missionary journey from Galatia to Phrygia. Paul spent 2 years establishing a church there. Finally, Paul strengthened the ministries in Macedonia, Greece, Troas, Assos, Mytilene, Chios, Samos, and Trogyllium, Miletus, Kos, Rhodes, Patara, Phoenicia, Tyre, Ptolemais, and Caesarea. The letters written by Paul, which were converted to New Testament books, are Romans, 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, Titus, and Philemon. The Apostle Paul's story demonstrates how powerful and transformative one encounter with Jesus can have on someone's life. His multicultural background of being a leading Jew who was exposed to Grecian language and culture was exactly what God needed to win the masses in that era. Paul was adaptable and able to humble himself to reach every group with the gospel. This is perfectly explained in Paul's writing in 1 Corinthians 9:19, 23, ESV 19. For though I am free from all, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win more of them. 20 To the Jews I became as a Jew, in order to win Jews. To those under the law I became as one under the law, though not being myself under the law, that I might win those under the law. 21. To those outside the law I became as one outside the law, not being outside the law of God, but under the law of Christ, that I might win those outside the law. 22. To the weak I became weak, that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some. 23. I do it all for the sake of the gospel, that I may share with them in its blessings. Apostle Paul's total surrender to the call of God upon his life is the reason his ministry was so impactful, lasting many generations. He was truly the evangelist to the Gentiles. What are you willing to sacrifice for the sake of the gospel?